As with many civil wars, families and communities have been divided, and normal life is sadly a thing of the past. However, a surprising unifying force is emerging from the rubble and bitterness. The national football team made a credible effort to qualify for next year's World Cup in the Americas, only losing out to two excellent sides in the end. That's Senegal and the DR Congo. Later this month, they'll take part in the Africa Cup of Nations in Morocco, only their second tournament in 13 years, with the whole country behind them. CGTN's Sadiq Shaban gets our show underway.
The vicious fight for control of power between the Sudanese army and the paramilitary group, the Rapid Support Forces, has fueled the armed conflict in Sudan since April 2023. The United Nations estimates that about 150,000 people have died and about 12 million more have fled their homes due to the conflict, and is calling the current situation the world's largest humanitarian crisis. Sporting activities, including the country's football league, were immediately suspended. The players fled to safety and the fans stopped coming to the stadium.
There is no doubt that the sports nation is based on the pillar of youth, and youth are the League of Nations. The war has stopped sports activities in all of Sudan, and we in the Sudanese Football Association were among the first to initiate stopping sports activities since April, because it was not possible to play the game. We also stopped the league in support and assistance to the Sudanese people.
Before the 2019 coup that toppled President Omar al-Bashir and the subsequent conflict, Sudan's domestic league flourished, with teams and players making headlines at home and abroad.
The war affected us, and indeed we lost a large number of coaches, players and administrators, even at the level of the Football Association. The psychological aspect is the main obstacle, while the other challenge is the physical aspect, as a result of the lack of competition, which has affected the national teams and outfits like Al-Merrek and Al-Hilal.
Earlier this year, football competition resumed in 4 cities across Sudan after a 21-month cessation of sporting activities. Officials tapped on the power of football to achieve social cohesion and integration among the communities that had been torn apart by war.
We will continue to support you and advance your ranks in everything you ask for as athletes. Our offices in the Sovereignty Council are open at any time, because we know that this effort is an appreciated effort and an effort to build the young men and women of this country.
Thousands of Sudan's passionate supporters and many neutral fans will be cheering their team in Morocco as they play Algeria, Equatorial Guinea and Burkina Faso in the group stages of this year's Africa Cup of Nations, hoping to give their country something to cheer after a long period of war and conflict. Sadiq Shaban, CGTN.
And one man who knows only too well how powerful sport can be in bringing peace and harmony in the face of adversity is definitely Didier Drogba. The retired Côte d'Ivoire captain recently recalled how their qualification for the World Cup in 2006 for the first ever time inspired many to lay down their arms during a civil war.
2005, actually, the day we qualified for the first ever World Cup of the country. We achieved something that went beyond football. Not only we qualified, but we also managed to have ceasefires in our country, who was devastated by civil war. And it was the first step that led the country to elections. So this is the power of football, this is the power of sport, and it goes beyond football. Sometimes we think it's football, we're passionate about the result, about the emotions, but we forget that it's more than football, it's more than a game. I'm sure that you have to experience it to understand. It's more than a game.
Right, let's talk more about Sudan and the power of sports to resolve internal conflicts in Africa with veteran broadcaster and friend of the program, Bernard Otieno, who joins us in studio. Bernard, welcome back to the program. Let's begin by talking about Sudan and what exactly makes them special. This team under Kwesi Appiah, what exactly has been making them tick against all odds?
Well, first of all, you must admit they have a very experienced coach, 68-year-old, has been to the Africa Cup of Nations before, has played for the national team in Ghana as well. And if you remember a couple of years back, Ghana was the darling of the world. We called them the Brazils of Africa because of the way they were playing. And they produced some very good players as well. But then again, you're talking about a Sudan that was a powerhouse before in soccer. And then this cycle is now beginning again. Now, conflict just makes them stronger because this team has been together for a number of years. It's the same team that played in Chan. So they have that resilience. They have that cohesiveness as well. And they don't come with any baggage as well. They don't have any psychological, they don't feel downtrodden in any way. They don't feel like they are the underdogs. They have some self-belief and some resilience, which you have seen in them over and over again in the tournaments they've been participating in. They held Algeria again in the Arab Cup. Yeah. They also held them, actually beat them, if you remember, in the Chan. So really, they're in very good territory as they are at the moment. They do not have any psychological inferiority coming into the Africa Cup of Nations. So that resilience, the defensive solidarity, the midfield battles, plus they've got some youth in them, some very young, vibrant players. And they have no superstars in the team. So everybody's a superstar. So everybody's playing for country. And that, I think, is what makes them tick. If you put everything else that football comes with on the side, that gives them a psychological edge over a lot of other players in their national teams.
Right. Yeah. There will, of course, be plenty weighing on them, thinking about what's going on back home. But looking at where they've been placed in the 2025 Africa Cup of Nations, which is just around the corner, they're in Group E, where they'll be facing Algeria once again, before then facing Burkina Faso and Equatorial Guinea. Yeah. Looking at the chances here, do you see them making it out of the knockouts?
Absolutely. Like I said, they already beat Algeria in Chan. They already held them in the Arab Cup. What would stop them from, again, getting the better of Algeria? Plus, they do not have any psychological inferiority, especially to Algeria, because of the number of times they have met them. And being a team that has been playing together, that resilience that we talked about, the way they handle their midfield, the youthfulness, can match Algeria anytime. Never mind the fact that Algeria has been to the Cup of Nations probably more times than they have. Even Burkina Faso, I think, has been there more times, maybe 13 times. Right. They have only been there 10. But remember, they have been champions before. And they have come close, I think, to either the quarterfinals or third place before. So they're in very good standings at the moment. Even at the Chan, they went to the quarterfinals and just lost, at the very last moment. That self-belief in a team takes away everything else. And the fact that they have conflict, it does not make them play worse. It actually makes them stronger. It makes them think about wanting to do something for their country and putting the country out there in the map of Africa.
We've heard from a legend of the game, Didier Drogba, explaining how AFCON success helped broker peace back home in Cote d'Ivoire for the Elephants and for the team, as well as the wider nation. What lesson maybe can the warring parties in Sudan draw from the example of Cote d'Ivoire?
The interesting thing is just the power of sport itself can sometimes bring conflict to a standstill. You've been told crime goes down even during the World Cup. You've been told warring factions. If I give you an example of Kenya, for example, the Pokots and the Marakwets, when they have sports, they all lay down their arms and play the sport fast. If messages then are given to them at that time, it would help to bring the warring factions together. I think they should leverage on the power of sports in itself, first of all, as a platform for soft political power. Sports in itself gives that platform where you can have soft political power, and then they should also use their own legends to be able to pass their messages to their teams. I think those are the lessons that they should learn. That they are warring, yes, but when we turn up for an international event, we are turning up as one country and not two. We are united. So that is the point at which messages should be sent to them to tell them, look, we don't know what you're fighting about, because when we are in the team, we don't belong to a political party. We don't belong to a warring faction. We belong to just one nation. The national anthem that plays is one for everybody who belongs to that nation.
Right. Before we let you go, maybe expound on that. What does the continent of Africa need to do to fully harness the power of sports, the unifying power of sports, as you mentioned, especially the ever-popular, beautiful game, to maybe promote peace in the more troubled regions?
Yeah, they should think about the fact that sport in itself and football, for example, transcends all language barriers. I mean, it's a universal language in itself. Use that universal language to be able to pass the messages that you want to pass on. Use your legends to be able to pass this information for peace. Use your education. I mean, bring in football in education or education in football and be able to pass these messages. So leverage on this power, leverage on these opportunities that you have, this universal language that you can use, and talk the language of peace. Think about the solidarity games. Have friendly marches that can be able to... Politicians themselves use sports, you know, to be able to bring in the masses to pass their messages. Why can't they then use the same platforms to be able to bring in the messages of peace? So use that language of football that transcends barriers, that knocks down every political, every tribal, every cultural barrier, and use it to pass the message of peace.
All right, a hopeful message there.
Think about the team itself already having been training out of the country, okay? So they're together, they're stuck together. They're in a very good position at that time to be able to pass on these messages to everybody else who's back at home and to the whole world in general.
All right, we will of course be keeping an eye on that situation as well as Sudan. Bernard, thank you as always for joining us on the program. Veteran sports broadcaster Bernard Otieno joining us on the program.